right, everyone, welcome back. Episode 6 of the Danger Ranger podcast. I'm your host, Zach Allred. So, first podcast since completing my 30-day challenge. If you haven't, go back and check it out. I have a playlist of the 30 videos that I filmed and edited and posted every day during the month of September. And I talked a little bit about my final video about like what it taught me and kind of the future of this channel. I'll just recap that for those that missed it. So basically, I'm going to continue making videos, and obviously the podcast. It's going to obviously be toned back from the 30-day challenge, a video every single day. I'm going to shoot for, obviously the podcast every week, at least one podcast episode, and then 1 or 2 videos every week about something, and I'm going to try and make them a little bit more high value than just trying to rush a video out to hit the number for the day. So go check that video out. It's the most recent video on the channel besides this one. I walked through Forsyth Park after our hurricane came through. What a joke of a storm, at least for us. We were fortunate here in Savannah to have just been absolutely grazed. When I say grazed, I mean barely. It was a little windy. We didn't even get any rain from Hurricane Ian, and just really grateful that we didn't get a full-on impact from that storm as the people in Florida did, which is just, it sucks. Like, seeing that kind of devastation, it's never cool. It's not cool to see that happen in the United States, having been overseas and seeing the results of prolonged warfare. It's kind of equivalent, and it sucks all around that everyone's lives in those areas are impacted. So today we're sponsored by myself again. We've got about, I think, like 5 of these left in stock. RockwellDesigns.com, Rockwell-Designs.com, AK chest rigs. If you've got an AK and you want a, easily transportable and packable chest rig that can hold up to 6 mags and is easily expandable to carry a full complement of IFAK and whatever else you can fit in the molly, go check it out. The YouTuber Blue Jean Operator and I filmed some videos together, and he actually did a review of like the very first models of the Porter chest rack, and that's up on his YouTube channel. I'll link that in the description below, or make a link somewhere here in the video. Go check that out if you haven't really done or haven't really seen much about this design. It's pretty good. A lot of people, I haven't really gotten any negative feedback from it, and this month is I'm going to be trying to collect testimonials and stuff, put those up on the website for everyone else to see. But so far, 2 years of being in business, and I haven't really ever had anyone tell me that it was absolute trash. And I've made probably close to 200 of these, I think, at this point. And most of those within this year. Naturally, I'm a little burnt out. So I'm taking October off from sewing. I was supposed to be finished with this project back in September, the sewing project that is, and unfortunately I had a little bit of a delay with one of my suppliers to where I was set back almost 2 weeks, and I'm having to play, not necessarily catch up, but like I had to move my schedule of production around quite a bit, and there were some days where I wasn't doing much at all, which was frustrating to say the least. So for anyone that has that kind of thing happen where they're reliant on suppliers to fulfill demand. So what I'm trying to say is basically if you're, launching a product or a service or whatever have you, to build some time into your timeline to where you have like a buffer in case something goes wrong with one of your suppliers or, technology problems, anything of that sort where it'll cause you to be delayed. That's kind of what I've always done. I've had like an optimum timeline of events, and I'll follow that as best I can, but then I'll also be able to, I also have like a secondary, like, okay, if I have to complete it in half this time, what does that look like? And that's kind of what I used this time. I was able to switch some things around in the schedule of production to where I was doing something for most of the days with the stuff that I had on hand, so that when the rest of the material came, I was able to quickly get up and launched and finish the rest of the production. So that's just something to keep in mind if you run a business or a kind of service, is just having tertiary timelines built out in case something happens and you still have to meet a designated launch date. So yesterday was the 29th anniversary of the Battle of the Black Sea, or more commonly known as Black Hawk Down incident, or Operation, man, I don't remember the fucking name. Yeah, Operation Gothic Serpent. So funnily enough, I enlisted, or at least signed my initial contract 8 years ago on that same day. And I still remember I had went up to MEPS without a option 40 contract and was just winging it and hoping that the guy that I was going to meet and talk to up there, who's going to be able to get me my actual contract, would be able to pull some strings and populate an option 40 contract for me. Because I told my recruiter, I'm like, hey, like, I really want to do this, but I'm not going to sign without an option 40 contract. Like, you're going to have to get one for me. Otherwise, I'm not going to sign. Like, I'm not going to go and gamble on being able to pick one up in one station unit training. I just knew that that was too much of a risk for me. So I went into negotiations like that. And for the guys out there that are looking to go into regiment, that's what you should do. You should not settle for just a basic 11 X-ray and listen to your recruiter who says, oh, you can get it in OSA, like you'll be fine, like they'll come around, they always take the best. It's like, that's risking a lot, because what ended up happening in my one station unit training is I think we had, man, close to like 15 or so total in the company with option 40 contracts, and we had another 15 or 20 who were wanting an option 40 contract. And by the time that the recruiter, the 75th recruiter, came around, he's actually the current first sergeant at RASP. He came around, very serious dude, and he was like, yeah, I don't have any. He came around twice. The first time was just like, hey, like, I want to meet the option 40 guys, and then, you know, the guys who want one, we're going to show you a cool video. And the second time he came around was to offer actual option 40s, and he came by and he didn't have any to give. And there was a lot of really solid dudes who were really willing to give everything to get an option 40, and the fact of the matter was that they weren't just available for him. So keep that in mind. It's a huge gamble if you enlist without an option 40. Now, if you're an OSIT and you decide you want to go Ranger and you happen to get one, that's awesome. But if being a Ranger is what you really want, do not commit to a contract without option 40 in it. Option 40 is the only guaranteed spot or only guaranteed way to get into RASP and the 75th Ranger Regiment. Whether that's infantry, you know, 13 Fox, which is a forward observer, medic, any of the other soft skill MOSs, have that option 40. And a lot of the soft skill MOSs get huge bonuses as well, because you'll do your AIT, then you'll go to RASP, and then you'll go to airborne school. And once you get assigned to a Ranger battalion, they're all hurting for soft skill MOSs, to be honest. So if you didn't think that you wanted to do line, or for whatever reason you didn't physically qualify, you might be able to get a soft skill Ranger contract. Don't quote me on that. I think that you still have to meet some basic physical requirements, but if for whatever reason you don't want to do infantry, first of all, it's a little weird if you want to be a Ranger and not do infantry, but if you want an extra challenge, like, there's plenty of those out there, and the regiment needs soft skill MOSs. I don't know all of the available MOSs for regiment off the top of my head, but that stuff is very easily Googleable. Go Google it. Google that shit. I ran a quick little Mogadishu 5K in my kit and helmet, and carried a little 14-pound dumbbell last afternoon. I came in like a 32. Kind of sucked, kind of slow, but that's fine. Completely on a whim. I haven't ran in kit since I was in. My knees just did not have a good time. But doing those kind of things, and like keeping the warrior memory, and the remembering the dudes that, you know, fought in these famous battles is very important, and very much a part of the Ranger culture. Is you'll find once you get to RASP, like, you have to know Ranger history. You have to know all about the Ranger battalions in World War II. You have to know about Francis Marion in the swamps during the Civil War. You got to know about Robert Rogers and his 19 standing orders. You got to know about the 17, I think, man, I'm going to feel like a jackass for not knowing this. I'm pretty sure it's 17 Ranger companies in Vietnam. And then obviously you got to know the history of the current Ranger battalions. You got to know what airfields they jumped into during Panama and Grenada. You got to know about Operation Eagle Claw. You got to know about Operation Gothic Serpent. You got to know about Operation Desert Storm, which battalions participated in that. And then down to that, even beyond that, with the global war on terror, you have individual airborne rangers in the sky that belong to each of the ranger battalions and each of the ranger companies that you're going to have to know at least the names of the ones that were in your company, minimum, if not the ones in your entire battalion, which is a little tricky, but minimum you want to know the airborne rangers in the sky of your company. When you're in RASP, you're going to pick out an airborne ranger in the sky, and you're going to learn everything about him. You're going to learn what battalion he was in, what company he was in, what objective he died on, what his position was, when he was born, where he was born, the day that he died, when he went to ranger school. Like, you're going to want to know every single detail about this guy. And this is how the legacy stays alive, is by fresh blood, remembering and looking back on the rangers that have come before you and who've given the ultimate sacrifice. It's very critical to the ranger regiment as a whole that this lineage carries on. And regardless of what anyone might say about the wars that we fought in or the conflicts that we were engaged in, you can't take away the sacrifices these men make, because in the heat of the moment, like, they're not dying for some abstraction like, oh, freedom, I'm going to bring freedom, my freedoms. No, it's literally because they felt a call in their heart and they're dying for their brother to the right and left. And they don't care. Like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, we're wiping, we're going out on a raid to take another shithead off the face of the earth. That's tertiary, and that's secondary to the main mission of we're getting after it. We're warriors. This is what we do. And I'm going to lay my life down for my brother to my right or my brother to my left if it has to happen. And I think that Ranger Regiment and the rest of the soft community, I mean, I'm sure the regular infantry as well, has this warrior spirit, but I never served in any of those units, so I can't speak to it. But I do know and I can speak to the warrior culture in Ranger Regiment, and it's very much alive still, even among dudes who are out. Like, I see my buddies who are out still participating in these, hero wads, and it's just inspiring to know. It's like, hey, like, these traditions and this lineage isn't gonna die with my generation. Bit of a rant there, but hopefully that lit a fire into some of you guys that are talking about joining and who are in RASP right now, and hopefully that kind of put your head on straight. Last thing we're going to talk about today is maybe somewhat controversial, and I've been asked by a few guys in my DMs about this specifically. So, should you even join the Army today, given everything that's been happening in the world and in the U.S.? Is it even worth participating in? So what I'm about to say is, purely my opinion. It doesn't reflect upon the Army, as I am no longer, in the Army, but I'm going to say that anyways. This is my personal opinion. So with, again, everything that's happened in the past year, couple of years, 3 years or so, with the current administration and then all of this plague stuff, the leadership in the Army, the good leaders that are going to stand up and take a stand against, bullshit from the Pentagon, they're getting wiped out. They're getting fired. They're getting, retired. They're getting forced out of the Army, and the ones that do stay are all going to toe the line in favor of their jobs. This is opinion. Again, don't get fucking butthurt about this. The ones, I'm sure that there are tons of other people who fought the mandates and who fought against, some of the stuff that was going on with, especially after we realized that it was, not as much of a threat as we were led to believe initially. I totally understand at the beginning, back in March of 2020, like, oh yeah, this makes sense, shut things down, wear masks, all that. It makes sense. But it was very clear by the summer of 2020 that this wasn't an issue for the majority of people, especially in the Army. And just the way that it was handled on all levels by local leadership as well as, nationwide military and Army leadership, it was really disheartening to see, because no one was taking a stand against the obvious, facade that it was. And the ones that did got fired, got removed from their positions, and got kicked out. So that's one factor that you need to take into consideration when you join. The other one is the war is over. Like, full stop. Like you're probably not going to deploy for a while. Odds are good, unless it's, Ukraine or Taiwan or Southeast Asia somewhere, in which case that's going to be a very, very violent conflict, and it's going to be nothing like you've seen, the regiment and the army doing in Afghanistan against dirt farmers. Like it's going to be a completely different ball game. Look at what's happening in Ukraine right now. It's near peer threat, near peer warfare. And that's not as sexy as, loading up on a helicopter with your boys and landing on the X and not having to worry about artillery and not having to worry about other enemy aircraft or drones even. There was a little bit of enemy drone use in Syria, but it was pretty minimal. I mean, yeah, Iraq, Syria, there's a little bit of a drone threat, but not nearly as much as like there's just regular line units dropping mortar shells on each other over in Ukraine. Like trench warfare is a thing still over there. And if the U.S. were to get involved in a conflict like that, it's not going to be what you think of it, what you think is going to be based on what you saw of the global war on terror and what you've seen in video games and stuff. So there's that. Those are the two, main reasons why you probably shouldn't join right now if you are, an actual, freedom-loving American. Military service is very admirable, but at the end of the day, you have to have your own reasons for doing it. You can't be like, I'm serving my country. Like, if you still believe like that we're fighting for freedom, like you need to take a serious look in the mirror. You need to do it for your own reasons. I joined for my own reasons. I joined to, satisfy a warrior calling that I felt, and I did that. I scratched that itch essentially. Like I did my time, I had my deployments, and I had my end state in mind. And I was at the crossroads that I was at, about a year ago, was either I stay and I go try out for an SMU or I get out. And even trying out for an SMU, like the SMU is still part of the military. Like they're still subject to whatever's going on politically. They're still subject to whatever policy mandates that the Army has and what the military as a whole have. So, and that's a gamble as well. It's like, all right, I can train up and I can be the best and I might be able to make it, physically, but it's like you still might not get picked up. And the risk to reward for me of having to re-enlist for another potentially 2 or 3 years and not make it was not what I wanted to do. And I'll talk more about why I got out, but that's probably the main reason. I satisfied my calling, my itch. I got my deployments, and I was comfortable and felt satisfied and fulfilled enough to leave. So for those that, have that same calling, that same urge, that drive, nothing that I just said is going to dissuade you probably from joining, because I was the same way. When I was 17, there wasn't a thing that anyone could tell me that was going to change my mind about joining. Nothing my parents said, nothing the news said, nothing. I was dead set on going. So I know that there are some of you out there listening to this. And for those guys, I will say, good, good on you. You obviously have a reason why you want to join. So that's taken care of. It shouldn't be because you want to be a defender of freedom. That's a lie. Don't, it's not like that right now. If it was an invasion of the U.S. and you joined up, that's something different. But if you're joining, it needs to be for your own, and I want to say it's selfish reasons. Like you want to go and you want to test yourself against other men. You want to be in an environment of high competition physically, mentally, and you want to prove yourself, and you want to do, adrenaline kind of stuff like jumping out of planes, and you don't have much else, I don't want to say you don't have much else going for you, but if you're, married or have a serious relationship, it's going to put serious strain on that. So you just have to figure out what your priorities are. You can, if it's joining for training, you can get that elsewhere. I wouldn't say that's a valid reason to join because you learn how to shoot good. Like all the stuff that I learned in regiment, like is taught by people else out there. And yeah, it's going to cost you money, but $500 for a weekend course versus 4-year commitment. Like I would probably, if all I wanted was training, I would opt for the training. I wouldn't, sign my life away for 4 years. So have your own reasons for joining if you're going to join at this point in time, and realize that if you do, you might go into a war that is incredibly shitty to fight, and that's part of the job. So, just take that into consideration. Keep that in mind. And if you are going to join, you need to join a unit that's actually worth a fuck. So, best unit to join straight out is Ranger Regiment. The training, the leaders that are in the 75th, and the lineage and the warrior ethos is very much alive in that unit, and you're going to get the most out of your career by joining and going to a unit like that. So don't go regular infantry if you're going to join right now. Don't do a soft skill MOS right now. It's not worth it. It's not worth the college money. You can find that elsewhere. Join because you want a challenge. Join because you want to be part of an elite unit that has a proud lineage, and join for your own reasons and not some fantasy of, I'm going to go shoot terrorists in the face, because that's not what it is right now. Unfortunately, that ended. So, and that should be motivation for you to not quit RASP. When I went through RASP, I was deathly terrified of going to a line in a leg unit. Like, that was probably the main thing that kept me from ever quitting. I didn't really ever think I was going to quit, honestly, in RASP. There wasn't ever a point in my career or in my 8 weeks at RASP where I was like, all right, I'm done. I never got to that point for me. But the motivation of not wanting to go to a leg unit was probably topmost among why I didn't quit. So that should be extra fuel for your fire. That's all I've got for today. Go check out my personal Instagram, Zach Allred Official, as well as my business Instagram, Rockwell Designs Actual. Go check out my website, rockwell-designs.com. Next week, not too sure what our podcast will be about next week. I kind of just come up with these a day or two prior. So keep an eye out. It'll be out. Might be in a little bit of a different format and or location. Might finally get out of the garage. I'm wearing the sweatshirt, as you can see, because it is a little chillier here now in Savannah, which is very nice. But that's all I've got. Thank you for everyone who subscribed. Thank you for everyone who likes these videos. Like this one, please. Go check out the Instagram, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.